Hello class, and welcome to this brief video on instructions for creative project number 3, which is going to be a sound design project. Now, sound design, much like the video on Foley that we saw a couple weeks ago, is really centered around creating sounds synchronized to a video of some sort. Whether that be for a video game, or I suppose it could be purely audio if it's like for an audio podcast, or often for TV or film. So that's the idea behind sound design. In some way, creating sounds, usually effects or ambient noise, meant to be synced to a particular other piece of media. Now, this project will test what you've learned in Ableton so far, things like cutting and moving files around, creating tracks, perhaps using the sampler instrument that you made from last project, and of course, what we've learned this week with automation. So this is just going to take a little bite-sized video clip, which is sort of deceptively short because it's trying to show you how much information, how much sound, and how many layers of tracks can be packed into just one little piece of video. So you'll be taking this little clip of video and creating sound design for it, whether that's taking the sounds that I've provided for you in the folder, finding your own sounds, or even using the sounds that you've started to create using your SoundWalk and your sampler library. And so this sound design project will really serve as a proving ground for you to show how much you've learned in terms of automation and get a chance at getting to play with automation yourself. Like I said, in this short little clip, the time that it will take to do your automation and make sure your mix and everything is just right will be quite a bit more than the clip alone might indicate. So especially if you're sort of newer to digital audio workstations, be sure to build in a good several days for this project, even though the length of the project itself, what is exported, seems to be quite short. Alright, so with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our materials. Alright, first things first. Because we're coming up on Halloween, I decided to go for a spooky theme of sound design, both in terms of the clip and in terms of the sounds that we can incorporate. So first thing I'm going to do is play the video clip that you'll be using just a few times through, just so you can start to watch it and get a sense for what you'll be creating sound design to. Alright, so here we go. Okay, and that's it. So this is really fast. One more time for a good measure. Alright, so in this video you can sort of see just a few distinct stages. First, you start with the ghost swooping down to the candy corn, right around there, and picking up the candy corn. So, and we're thinking about this in terms of visual actions or beats. There's the swoop, picking up the candy corn, and then starting to swoop away. So sort of beat number 1. Beat number 2 is the ghost is going to fly away with the candy corn and start to eat it. Alright, so it's hard to get exactly the right stop here. Okay, so flies up, starts to eat the candy corn. So there's, again, imagine in terms of sounds. What sounds would you expect to hear if this happened in a film or a video game? Some sort of eating sounds, right? So the ghost is starting to eat the candy corn. However, as that is happening, now sort of beat 3, what you could call like the punchline if this is a joke setup, is the candy corn falls through the bottom of the ghost. The candy corn falls and the ghost flies away. And in theory, if this were a GIF, we could just keep looping this over and over again. So the ghost tries to eat the candy again. Alright, and that is the scope of the video that you're setting. But I hope you could see that in terms of sounds, what sounds will be needed here in order to create this sound design. There are actually quite a few stages. First, there's the swoop. There's grabbing the candy corn, swooping away, starting to eat it. And then the candy corn falls through. And what is the ghost reaction to when the candy corn falls back to the ground, as well as the impact of the candy corn on the ground. So in that little short 2-second clip, you have, let's say about 7 to 10 or so opportunities to include sounds. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the sounds that I've included. So here you'll get to hear just some of them in raw form and start to go through these and think about the potential where you could apply these sounds to various parts of this little clip. There's our first sound. That one could be good for a chomping sound. Here's our second one. Alright, so that one sounds more like a gobbling sound, right? Or that the ghost might make, perhaps, while eating. Let's hear number 3. Alright, so there we have some cartoonish ghost giggling, perhaps that you might want to incorporate clips of during various parts, whether that's grabbing the candy corn or swooping. So you can see the potential behind these various sounds, and I'm not going to go through all 20 of them right now, but just from playing those few, maybe you're starting to get some ideas of what you can do with these sounds. Okay, so now let's go ahead and open up Ableton. So I've shown you just the gist of it, right? But let's go ahead and bring up Ableton, and I'll show you how to work on this project in terms of your Ableton session. Alright, now we're here to a new blank session, and I have had to disable my camera because if I don't, then my CPU will just freak out. So to save CPU, I am only recording my screen. Alright, so you have a new blank session file, and in a second we're going to add a bunch of audio tracks, which will be helpful when we start to create our sound design, which will probably have multiple layers going at once. But for now, let's start by just getting our video file going. So what I have is in my file manager window, I have the video file selected, and I'm going to drag it over into the arrangement view. So just literally drag it here at the very start and drop. And so once you've seen that I've done that, you see that the video window is going to pop up here in the lower left. I recommend you keep this around, but if you close it by accident, you can go to View and go to Video Window to bring it back. Here, I'll show you. So X that out. View, Video Window. Okay, now I'm going to hit the W button so we can really zoom in just on this ghost part. One other thing is you probably want to really expand your grid for this, or it's going to annoy you the more you're trying to get precise with these measurements. So you'll want to turn your fixed grid to off in order to let yourself drag your files around freely. So remember, right click in the zone, fixed grid off. Okay, so now you'll see that I have my video window here and the region it corresponds to. So if I just go to the beginning and hit play. All right, we can see the video playing in accordance with the audio timeline. All right, so now what the time comes to actually start adding in audio files. And here's where your choice will come out of all those 20 audio files and other things that you want to add. So here, I would recommend just giving yourself space to add in audio files by doing insert audio track, and I'd probably just go ahead and add in like 4 or 5 to start. Let's just add 5, so we're off to a good start. All right, all these audio tracks, and this is going to give us lots of room to provide sound design underneath this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and, I'm not going to do a complete mock-up right here because that's really for you to do, but what I will do is just start to layer in these various sounds that we started to take a look at. So first, I believe this was going to be a munching sound, this first one. Yep, it is the munching sound. So here's what I'm going to do. First, let's just go ahead and drag this in to a region. So I'm now adding in the munching sound. Now you'll notice that the munching sound is almost as long as the video file itself, so it's clear that we're going to have to do some cutting down here. But let's go ahead and start it at least at the right spot. Or let me listen back to it first and make sure that the beginning is the part we want. Okay. Okay, what I might do is I might just take the end of this crunching, sort of right here, and then a little bit of the tail when it's starting to nibble but fade away. Okay, like I'm probably not going to need that much. I'll bring it into about right here. And I think we can call that good. All right, now we just need to find where is this audio file going to sit. So let's go ahead and take a look at our video file. Okay. Now we just need to figure out where this audio file is going to sit. So let's take a look at our video file. All right, I think it's clear that the ghost starts to eat it when it reaches the apex of its swoop. So right here, okay, I was a little late on that. That is basically where the ghost is going to start eating it. And I think we could start the munching even just a little bit earlier, like right about here. Let's see how that sounds. So I'm going to line this up with the beginning of that. And then let's just watch the video and see how it strikes us. Okay, so we definitely have too long of a tail, but I think it appeared in more or less the right spot. It went on a little long because the ghost finished eating it before the sound had ended. So there was a little bit of a disconnect there. So if I bring in my tail in a bit more, maybe I'll give it right there to where the candy corn falls through the ghost. Now let's see. Okay. Didn't think that was very bad. Okay. I'm just going to do a little thing here to sort of move this around. And you see at this part, I'm just cutting and sort of placing things more precisely. Let's get one nibble right there, move it a little over, and then let's actually take less of the tail. So I'm going to bring that in and fade it out right there. Now let's see how this goes. Okay. I like it how it has a little more attack on the front end, but my placement was off, so a little too early. I'm gonna move this over just a smidge. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I could extend the tail just a little bit. Okay, so now the horizontal placement of that sound is pretty much in order. Now let me go ahead and get sort of my next sound going so we can get some layering. Now this sound, let's see what this was. I like to drag it in afterwards so we can wait and see what it is. Okay, so this is the ghost sounds during the munching, right? You could use it on other parts of, like, you know, the ghost sounds, but for me, I'm going to go ahead and put this with the munching. So now we get the question, should we bring in this sound before it starts to munch, after, during, at the same time? Let's think about this. Now, to me, listening to this, I think we should probably bring it in just before the crunch munch munch starts. So it's sort of like an appetizing little before the actual munch starts. So let's go ahead and put it right there and see what happens. Okay. So I think that's the right idea, but let's go ahead and maybe bring it even just a bit earlier. And then see how it looks. I overshot it there, so let's bring it back and split the difference. And one more time, just split the difference. No, I like it kind of where it was, so let's bring it back. Alright, so you can see how this is so much trial and error, right? Like I just tried about 4 or 5 different positions just to see what was going to make the most effective combination. But I think I'm happy with where that's at. Now let's go ahead and see our third sound. Looks like this one's going to be a lot longer, so we're going to have to cut this one down. Alright, so clearly we're not going to get all of that sound, but let's just find the part that we really like. Alright, I think the center one is a little too much, but this first one has a lot of potential. So let me go ahead and squeeze in and just isolate that. And we may not even end up taking that much, but let's go ahead and get that much to start. Just a little ghost laugh right there. Okay, and I'm thinking this is probably, we can do this during the initial swoop right at the beginning of the clip. So basically when it swoops and grabs the candy corn, that's the end. So again, I think we're going to end up taking even less of this. In fact, I'm almost certain of it. So let's bring it in, see how it looks. Yeah. So if we're going to do this, we have to create a little more space because the ghost right now has sort of 2 layers of sound happening at once, right? So let me try this. I'm going to go out to one of these laughs right here, scoot it over, and in our automation, we'll end up doing a little bit of a fade. And same here, we'll end up probably fading it in a little after. I think I'm going to scoot it just a little bit over here too. So let's see how this looks now. Okay. Yeah, so not bad. You'll see, I think my instincts were right there where we can sort of have the first laughing sound going down and then go straight into the after that for the om-noms. We're going to have to clean that up some more with automation, which is the next part for me to show. But thankfully that is well within our power. The last thing I want to showcase is how you can use your sampler instrument for this project. So I went ahead and added a sampler instrument track using the instruments sampler in the left. And I'm going to go to my user library, presets, instruments, and sampler in order to get to my pot rack sampler. And let's go ahead and use the second one. This is going to be sort of the forest of the brush over the metal. So this works really well for an ambient soundscape. So let me go ahead and use my keyboard and find what is the best key to use for this. So I'm just sort of going for like a spooky layer of ambiance here. This might be a little too buzzy. This is pretty good though. We don't want to get too high because now it starts to get more of that noise involved and it sounds more like a jet turbine. So probably not going to go that high. And then how about this one? I think that's too, but this is too gritty here. So I think for me the sweet spot is right around here. Maybe this one or this one. Yeah, I might just use it actually at pitch because you get more of the sort of like grittiness in there that sounds just like little bits of digital distortion. So let me just go ahead and record a region using some of that. So I'm going to go down to my sampler, arm it for recording, and hit record. Alright, that should be enough. Okay, so if I go ahead and cut down right to where this begins, and remember, I can do this because I've turned off the grid feature. And then go ahead and cut it back down right to where it ends. Let's just try having this as sort of an ambiance across the whole thing. Just see if it lends it more of a spooky air. So you can see here I've definitely recorded too much. So let's just bring it in. Okay, now let's see what this sounds like. The mix is going to be out of whack because that's our next step, but I'm just trying to make sure all the elements are there for our sound design. Okay. So one more time just to look at it. All right. So I think our elements are there. Now next is going to come the automation. And I'm not going to step through all of this because this is part of the discovery for you to do on the assignment. And so remember, you're going to want to click right here above where the track names begin to turn on your automation. Let's go ahead and start with volume. So we're going to start by doing mixer for all these guys. And when we listen to our track, just right off the bat, what is too loud? What is too loud in this mix? All right, so I think pretty evidently what's too loud right now is the laughter. That has a much bigger waveform, you can see, relative to everything else. And I also think the ambiance, the sampler that I used, is a bit too loud. So let's bring both of those down. So go ahead and click to make your breakpoint. And from here we can drag it down. So remember what we said, 6 decibels is going to be half in volume, or double in volume, depending on if you're increasing or lowering. So I'm just going to put it at a -6 right now, half it in volume, and see how that sounds. We just wanted it to be a spooky mist of sounds, not to kind of steal the show. For the laughter, however, I think that probably needs to come down more than 6 dB, so more than twice. And let's go ahead and drag it down. Okay. But for the laughter, I think this is going to need to come down more than 6. In other words, be less than half as loud as it was. And so let's go ahead and drag this down to -10. See how that is. Okay. Yeah, so I think that was well mixed so far, just as sort of a set it and forget it parameter. Yes, everything sounds more balanced. Was there anything for us to bring up? I think there was. Let's listen again. For me, I really want to hear more of the crunch gobbling. All right, so let's go to our track volume. Yeah, mixer track volume. Set our breakpoint. Now again, here's where it gets tough because we only have so much headroom, right? We can't go past +6 as we looked at. So let's just set it at +4, and if we need to put other things down, we can. We might have to put some other things down. So let's go ahead and move everything else down by 3 and see how that works. Again, just for now, for starters. So we'll do this -3. This -3, and this to -9. Okay, so that might have been a bit overkill. I'll bring each of these back one, but again, this is the sort of fine-tuning that you would do in your subsequent process, so I'm not too worried about getting too granular right now. But now let's look at pan. Remember what I told you about pan? It's setting things to be near or far, left or right, within your stereo mix. Okay, so where do we want these items to be situated? Well, there's the ghost laughter, and also the ghost mms. Now, I think probably because those are from the same voice, those need to be situated in the same spot. Then there's the crunch munching. And while technically that would also be from the same mouth, you know, if we're thinking about this spatially, I think it might actually work best psychoacoustically, or in terms of how we hear it, if we layer that opposite where the ghost vocalizations are. It'll help us to separate them out in our mind so we can hear each one more distinctly. So in your automation, go ahead and change this to track panning instead of volume. And let's go ahead and make our breakpoints. So where should we put our ghost voice? Well, because we see the ghost coming in on the right, maybe we want to start the ghost off on the right. And of course, we could automate our panning differently to change over the course of the example. So go ahead and put it up to plus, let's do like 40 to start. We'll put that ghost at plus 40, or what Ableton calls 40R. There we go. Make the breakpoint, do the same for the appetizing sounds. All right, now let's put our crunch to the left. So this will be minus 40 or 40L. As for the sampler ambiance, that I have other plans for, some special plans. So we'll get to that soon. Let's just take a look at this. And again, if you're not listening on a stereo pair of headphones, this is going to make absolutely no sense because it's going to do the exact same thing. But if you have a stereo pair of headphones, you should now hear the ghost voice and the munching being separated out into left and right. Alright, so for me, that helped me to hear those sounds more distinctly. And it would then also go back and inform again your volume automation, what you want to do there. For example, maybe now I actually do need to bring up the sound because the crunching is coming through a lot more clearly with nothing to compete with. Now, here's a part that I wanted to show you. So let's go to our sampler now, this sort of spooky ambiance that I'm making. Well, in order to make it maximally spooky, I think what I should do is actually have the buzzing sound sort of go in and out, to fade from right to left in a sort of oscillating or swooping motion. So how can I do that? Well, one easy way is to use the draw function. So if you go up here, click your pencil on, now we can just sort of draw in from the start and just smear back and forth. So let's see what I can do here. Let's go. So I'm on the left side now, swooping back, maybe whip around a little bit, kind of bring it more gradual, and then drift off as it ends. All right, so remember up here is right, down here is left. Now let's go ahead and hear how this sounds. See if you can hear in your stereo setup, hear this kind of mechanical texture swooping around. This may be too much. I just want to set it there so you can hear the effect of making that mechanical sound go from right to left using panning. Yeah, so with how short it is, I definitely think that's too much. I'd probably redraw this to be more gradual. But could you hear that swooping back and forth? I definitely could. I think what we would need is sort of a more coherent pattern, like going one way towards the other side and then back to where it started. So maybe something a bit more like over here, and then end up right there. Let me try that out and see how it feels. All right, and something like that just helps it feel even more spooky. Now, of course, we could do this as well with our volume. So if we go back to our volume, there were just a couple of spots where I felt like this could really benefit from some more precise drawing. So instead of just set it and forget it, let's go ahead and draw in some more interesting envelopes. And here's where you can really spend a lot of time fine-tuning your mix. Things like when you have that initial laughter, do you want it to just be constant or do you want it to sort of come up and curve down? So I'm going to use my draw function again, and maybe let's have it go from here, dip up some, and then kind of level off right here, and then plummet. And once we want it to actually fade out. Maybe let's give the buzzing little fades in and out on the sides. You'll probably want to change it more in the middle too to make it a little more detailed, but I'm just doing a quick draw right now. Okay, let's see how this sounds. Okay, and then I think it could benefit if this sort of peaked more. and then of course went out. And again, this may be too much. I'm just trying to play around and show you the difference that you can make. For the gobble gobble, I think that was fine. I just wanted to sort of come out a little faster. So I'll just put it down like that. And let's see how it goes. Alright, now the problem with that is we kind of just had no sound at the end, which would be fixed if we added in more sounds. But what can we do for this set right here? Alright, so a few problems happen in that. One, fading out every sound is not going to work here. So let's go ahead and just bring back, let's get rid of our breakpoints here. Let's bring back the full gobble gobble sound, because I think that was a good basis. And in fact, I'm even going to say, well, we are going to have something on the end, right? Because we still need something for when it falls out. But let's keep the gobbling to the end, and I'm actually going to bring it up at the end, all right? So I'm going to bring this up at the end. And then I do think we need to refine the shape some of this appetizing sound. So let's go ahead and create a sharper incline in the beginning. Keep it going for longer, and then we're going to kind of just duck it out. So make a plateau right there. Let's see how that sounds. It ducked out too fast. So let's keep this going for longer. And then concave it down and out like that. Yeah, still a little too fast. So I'm actually, instead of having that precipitous drop, I'm actually just going to really bring it out gradually. The sound has a good fade on its own. So this is just the trial and error process that you'll get to go through as well. And out just a little faster there. Like that. And then something would happen on the end when the candy drops. Alright, so if we just look at the sum total of what we did in this just quick session, this, by the way, would not really be ready for export and submission. You would need to refine the automation some more to really get to what you're going for. So maybe get out of draw and start moving the breakpoints around more precisely. That's all stuff that you can do on your own time. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we've done so far. And it drops out. Now when you're ready, just like we did before, you can click, click all the regions that you're going to want to export. And then use File, Export Audio Video, and you want the same audio settings that you used before. So that's going to be, you know, at this point, I know before I was saying normalize is fine. At this point, let's turn normalize off. And the reason is because normalize is going to mess with the mix that you make. So now that we've learned about automation, you shouldn't be relying on normalize to get to a good mix. You should actually be listening to your master. What I recommend doing is set your computer volume at neutral, which is, you know, just 50% or at the halfway point, and then mix according to that. And use your meter as well in your master mixer, like we looked at, to make sure you're not over clipping. So go ahead and turn off normalize, 48,000, encode PCM on, wave, bit depth 24. And then one last thing for us to do here, click on create video, MPEG-4 movie, and encoder settings. This should be fine as is, but just check to make sure it's 1080p, and hit export. So I'm going to choose a place to save it as our test example. Alright, and after some CPU woes on my part, which seems to be par for the course when doing anything with Ableton and video at the same time, we now have our exported video. Again, this is not what I would expect for a final video, because there's actually much more to be added, right? More sounds, more polishing, more automation. So you can see how this actually will take you probably several sittings to complete, even for this 2-second clip. But let's go ahead and listen to what we got. All right, so pretty good for just a little 30-minute session, right? So that's going to be your instructions for creative project number 3. I hope that was helpful to you, and let me know if there are any questions this week on doing this project. To me, it's one of the more fun ones, just because we're working with video and new sounds. So before we get into the really musical stuff, this is just a good way to review automation and our familiarity with Ableton by doing a fun little Halloween project. All right, in that case, I'll go ahead and say bye-bye for now.